Eddie didn't answer. So let's get this started. Welcome, everybody. Sebastian, we'll turn it over to you for roll call.
All righty, thank you so much, Vice Chair. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right. You guys went small on me, so I gotta make it a little bit bigger. Okay. Carolyn Schofield.
Present.
Peter Anderson. You're muted, but I see you there, so I'm gonna count you. Larry Emerson.
Present.
David Harris.
I'm here.
Tom Sommers.
Here.
I like your art in the back. It's pretty cool. Jen Dirks.
Here.
Gary Johns.
Present.
Victoria Abrenica.
Here.
Secretary Webb.
Here.
And Vice Chair Hammond.
Here.
Okay.
Thanks, Sebastian. We have quorum. Are there any comments from the public for non-agenda?
No written non-agenda public comments. And let me double check on participants. We don't have any members of the public.
Okay, Larry, I see your hand is raised.
Well, I have been talking with some members of the public, and they told me they submitted a comment. So I don't know what happened to it if you don't have it available. But
Larry, do you know, was it non-agenda public comment or was it for one of the agenda items?
I think it's non-agenda. It doesn't look like it's on the agenda.
We did not receive any written public comments, but let me check our email, which I know sometimes we get some correspondence in there. Larry, do you know when they sent the comment?
Yeah, I think they sent it yesterday afternoon.
Okay, let me see.
And I can give a general explanation of this concern if you can't find it.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Don't see it. Okay, let me check the junk folder. You know, sometimes we get some stuff sent there.
And I don't know which mechanism they use to send the comments. So
yeah, Larry, I don't see anything. So if you know the comment.
In general, it's I guess there's some rumors or some concerns. Was it Western Community Energy was the CCA that went bankrupt last year? And there's some concerns recently, and sometimes this is just rumors of concern for Orange County Power Authority, but we should be paying attention and learn from the good and bad. And there was concern, I think, about the legal advice from this being provided to these CCAs, and that legal advice was maybe also being used by San Diego Community Power. So this is just raising the issue and asking for the staff to review. Should there be another legal advice available to get a diversified legal advice on our CCA? And anyway, that was the rumor, the concern that was raised, and maybe that should be addressed or mentioned to the board. How is we reviewing our legal advice, and is it the best legal advice to be used to ensure that we don't fall in the wrong direction? So I hope I expressed that clear enough, and maybe the next meeting you guys could provide your feedback that topic.
Thank you, Larry, for that comment. Typically, at least the board meetings, they don't address the non-agenda public comment. I know we are later today getting staff updates, and perhaps next meeting, that's something that we ask staff to give us an update on. I also urge you to make a comment at the board meeting, since the board ultimately is the one working with the CEO for legal counsel, is my understanding. But I think we could ask Rita during the updates today, but if not, since it's not an agenda item, I'm not supposed to discuss it at length today.
Okay, that's I'll go back to the person who shared their comments with me verbally and find out how they send in the comments, and they could also send in the same comments to the board meeting in advance. So I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Sebastian, did you have anything to add on that?
I think what you said, Chair Hammond, Vice Chair Hammond, that makes sense. I would just mention for you, Larry, when you get in contact with that individual, they can certainly submit their comments after the meeting, and I can make sure to circulate that to this group so you have it.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Are there any items to be withdrawn, reordered, or reordered on the agenda today? All right, not seeing any. Larry, your hand is still raised, but I'm assuming it's from that last item.
There we go.
Okay. All right, we will pass it over to receive updates, provide input and recommendations to the board on the updated CAC operating guidelines.
Great, and I'll take this one on. So when we first established the committee, we created a series of operating procedures that would just kind of guide the operations of your work. I've shared the 3 attachments that have been with your packet. They include the most recent version. They include one with red lines, and then they include the newest version without the red lines, if that is to be approved by the committee today for board recommendation for them to approve it. So just as a quick background, the board adopted the original version at the July 2020 regular meeting and then revised it in early 2021. That small revision was to align the time frame that the CAC's work plan is adopted. If you recall, we had that set up at a calendar year basis, and we moved that over to a fiscal year basis. So just a quick reminder on that one. At those junctures, the CAC provided input and recommended adoption for both versions. And then, as I mentioned, the purpose of the operating guidelines are to provide policies and procedures on how the CAC interacts with staff, the board, and the public. We've found that this is very helpful whenever any of you have questions. And since 2020, 2021 was a small change, but really since 2020, we've learned some best practices that we are recommending for today, and then getting you feedback so we can go back to the drawing board. So here's a quick picture of when the first version was adopted at the Chula Vista location when we first started. At that point, we were using WebEx. So funny, we were talking about WebEx before, because I was not a big fan of using WebEx then. Okay. So to dive a little bit further, as I mentioned, since we've started, the CAC has grown in numbers. And then we've also heard feedback on how to communicate as representatives of this committee, how to take in public comments, that kind of stuff. But the update incorporates new and refined sections on the following bullet points that you see here. I'm not going to go through those, but just know that there's really a few key areas, and let me let me go through those. Give me 1 second. Okay, so first off, we among the bigger portions, we add a portion on public comments where we just solidified that the public may provide written public comment or participate live via a virtual meeting format or in person, as designated by the Brown Act. We also add that to ensure public comment is heard in a timely manner, the chair will call on staff to acknowledge any submitted public comment after presentations or staff discussion are concluded in a particular agenda item. For those of you that have been with us for a little while, I acknowledge that that process was not really clear. So this is part of kind of tightening that up. Another one just to highlight, let's see here, is adding agenda items to the board of directors meetings. So we have had discussions with our executive leadership here, and the proposal is that the CAC shall report to the board of directors during every regular meeting as a consent item to be on the consent agenda. The staff report will cover the previous meeting's operations and noteworthy conversations held by the group. Then on a quarterly basis, as it is currently, the CAC shall have an item on the board of directors' regular agenda. That staff report shall cover major updates from the committee, as well as a verbal report from the chair or the designee. So that's the proposal for cementing it into the guidelines. So there's that kind of bigger change, and then kind of going down a little bit further, we kind of tighten up conducting outreach and representing SCCP to the community. And particularly, we wanted to include kind of some direction on the communications aspect of things. So this is towards the bottom of the document. It includes the sections such as approved messaging and talking points, media inquiries, speaker requests, etc. So we wanted to tighten that language and make sure that there was little to no confusion. And then that kind of covers the major pieces of it, in my opinion. At this point, I want to turn it over to Rita to see if you wanted to chime in on any of these changes, see if I missed anything. And I see Eddie in the lobby, so let me go ahead and promote him. But yeah, Rita, if you have anything.
Thanks. I think you covered the highlights really well, Sebastian. I think I'd love to get people's feedback, and also just, I think like the point of revising these is to make everybody more clear and comfortable with the procedures. So that's the reason for updating all of these.
Thank you, Rita. Are we ready to take comments from the public and CAC?
Yeah, I would just mention, Vice Chair Hammond, that just in terms of the process, we would take any feedback, comments, kind of go back to the drawing board, and then depending on the types of potential changes or comments, we may go back to staff, may return back here, or take the recommendations to the board as you see fit, potentially for this month or next month. In terms of instituting the staff report from the CAC, as it stands, I believe that the board would have to vote on the changes, and then the changes would take effect in August. But I can certainly we can certainly check with the team to see if the board can take a staff report this month rather than waiting for August. So I just wanted to add those 2 cents at the end, and we're happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. Let's first see if there's any from the public. Not seeing any hands raised. Sebastian, were there any public comments on any agenda items?
There are no written public comments
Okay.
submitted today.
Thank you. I see David has his hand raised. Go ahead, David.
Hi, a couple of things. In the first paragraph about the primary purpose of SDCP Community Advisory Committee, is the new wording meant to exclude certain types of items from coming to the CAC?
I'm pulling up the draft on my end. So I don't think so. I think it was just intended to clean it up a little bit more, but if you have any suggested changes, we're happy to take those.
Yeah, I think I would add the word policies. Because there's been quite a few policies of the SDCP that have come before the CAC over the last couple of years for input. For example, policies on delinquent accounts, that sort of thing.
Okay.
The policies on procurement was presented to us so that there would be some understanding of how projects get or proposals for procurement are rated by staff and the board, that kind of thing. And then the other thing that I think we should specifically include is legislative agenda. I think the CAC was very involved with some of the legislative efforts. For example, NAM 3.0 letter that went to the governor. So I'd rather specify these things so it's clear that that comes to the CAC rather than just kind of leave it broad and open. Anyone else have thoughts on that?
Gary, is your hand raised in response to David or for a different item?
Different item.
Okay, Larry, is your hand raised in response to
Oh.
David?
I think those are reasonable suggestions, and I was also going to throw another suggestion in, but someone else is first, so I'll let them proceed.
Okay, Sebastian, any feedback on David's?
I will go ahead and take these in and work with staff. I do think we may have to go back to the original language that was there, because now that I look at it, and this may have been on our part, the language that is here is included in our JPA, and so it goes back to the foundation of what's included in there. So I think this is very helpful. My mind goes to, we have an active ad hoc work plan committee that's working on what you all will take on this fiscal year. And so I see that if, the language that David mentioned, if that is not able to be edited, I see the work plan as the vehicle for specifying that a little bit more.
Okay, thank you. David, your hand's still raised. Did you have anything else before we move on?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with that response from you, Sebastian. I think I was trying to state what the CAC has been doing for the past 2 years. And in addition to strategic direction goals and programs, we have been involved in reviewing policies and legislative initiatives. That's what I was trying to emphasize is I think it's helpful to specify those things that should come before the CAC versus just leaving it to the original language that was in the founding document.
Yeah, I recognize we have worked to bring those policies to you all, and I'll go back to the drawing board and see how we can include that in a next draft.
Thank you, Sebastian. I agree with David. I think adding those things would be important. Okay.
If I could just,
Go ahead, Rita.
I just wanted to chime in to make sure that David and you all know that this language was not intended to exclude bringing those things to the CAC. So we'll go back, see what we can do and what like flexibility we have within the GAPA and take a look at the language again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rita. Okay, we have Gary and then Peter.
Yes, I think the draft that you have here still has us operated on a calendar year. For instance, the top of page 3, election of officers, the terms for each shall be each calendar year, et cetera. And since our, since the changeover between representatives from towns is on the fiscal year, that I think that should have gone to fiscal. That's my comment.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. We'll make that change.
Hey, Peter. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, I just concur with David that the statement should include a broader set of responsibilities in terms of our providing advice on policies, procedures, legislation, and practices, and whatever else he said. It's a little broader purview than is in the current document, and that was just to concur.
Okay, thank you. Larry, your hand was originally raised. Did you have anything else to add here?
Yes, just a general, we're also supposed to be providing comments from the community to San Diego Community Power, and I don't see that expressed here. So that's my thought, is besides supporting the board from our side, we're also supporting and providing comments from the community to the board when we hear them. So if there's a way to incorporate that in the description, I think it'd be good.
I'm
That's my
writing
comment.
that down. And yeah, this feedback is great because we have, in a way, 3 standing documents that kind of feed into the work that you do. There's the scope of work that was approved by the board when the committee was first established. There's the work plan that gets updated every year. And then there's this document. So this is great feedback. Make sure that the documents communicate to each other, and there's that we acknowledge that the core function of the CAC, which is relaying communications from the community to the board, is made present in all 3. So thank you for that, Larry.
Okay, Gary, one last comment, or is your hand raised from earlier?
I am responding to that last comment. I agree that, bringing the information from the community to staff and the board is important and maybe should be more emphasized, but there is some statement about it in the conducting outreach section. This is, along with talking points, media inquiries, et cetera, said it's highly important and appreciated for the CAC to report information they receive from their communities so that staff can respond, et cetera. So I guess I would say I'm in favor of maybe highlighting that more than burying it down in that one particular section.
I see Chair Price is raising his hand, so I will turn it over to him. But Sebastian, before we do so, did you have any feedback on Gary's last comment there?
Just thank you for the feedback. I'm writing that down. I think that sounds great.
Okay, Chair Price, if you are good to take it over, I will pass it to you now.
Yeah, thank you. And apologize for being late. And thank you, Tara, for taking over and doing an excellent job. As we're talking about community input from us to the board, we at some point need to develop a process to actually collect community input, whether it's a meeting or a biannual meeting or something, so that we reach out to the community for community input. Otherwise, people don't know that they can talk to us and we can relay that information. So I don't know if it really goes with item number 5, but I think it's something that we need to think about, is the process in which we accumulate or aggregate community input. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
You're now chairing, so if you want to call on Carolyn, feel free.
Well, that was a trick. Okay. Carolyn?
Yeah, I was actually going to say about the same thing that Eddie said. I think we need a process. What information are we collecting? How are we collecting it? What are we doing with it? And maybe we're at the point now where we can talk about that more, but that sounds like something that needs to be developed.
I think so. Are there any comments from the public? Is that where we're at now?
We did
I
public
think we only
comments.
have one attendee from.
We did public comments
We did
first, and there weren't any. I do see Victoria has her hand raised right now.
Okay, Victoria.
How do you feel about having like hosting or attending like events in our own communities, and then we do like community needs assessments specific to community power, and then we could just change at the top, or like maybe one of the questions could be like, which community do you live in, so that way it's all in one form. And then I don't know if that would help.
Yeah, I think that would help, but I think that requires that needs to be on an agenda for a future meeting where we actually speak specifically to this, because I think we're getting off the message of whatever number 5 was.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I think that is an excellent idea, and we will do that.
Thank you.
Are there any more hands raised? I'm on my phone, so I can't really see anything.
Chair Carolyn has her hand up, and then I'd like to comment on Victoria's comment.
Okay, Carolyn?
Yeah, I wanted to say we're just getting ready to talk about that later in today's agenda, about the outreach and public engagement that's going to happen through the community power plan, through the process and the needs assessment. And I think what's interesting about that is we'll be forming community partners through the process, and maybe it'll give us more information about ongoing what we could be doing in community. So it's going to be a pretty exciting endeavor that we're going to be embarking on.
Cool. Thank you. Rita?
No, that's Carolyn said what I was going to say, that
Oh.
when Victoria had that comment, I thought this community power plan is going to be a perfect venue for that. And also, you know, a really, really good opportunity for CAC members to introduce themselves to their own communities. So more to come later in the agenda on that.
Okay. Any other hands up? I'm not hearing any or seeing any. I guess we can move on to item number 7. Updates from staff on the open Chula Vista seat, open staffing positions, enrollment, and social media update.
Chair Price, I believe the next item is item 6. Receive, update, and provide input on SCCP supplier diversity efforts. But I also see Larry with his hand raised.
Yeah, I thought we were still reviewing the updated guidelines. So I have another question related to that, if we can step back.
Okay.
There was a lot of corrections where we're supposed to communicate to the CEO through the chair of our CAC. And the other day when we had that Padre event, it was nice to meet the staff face to face, and also in our workshop at the Pepper Park in National City. And I still want to be able to communicate directly with the staff one-on-one. Is there anything different we need to understand how the process is communicating from us to the staff directly? And when do we need to go through the chair to the CEO? Could you kind of clarify that?
Larry, I believe that the communication from CAC members to the CEO or the board would mean for you to go through Eddie if it was board related. So if it was something to be placed on a board agenda,
Okay.
or something that needed to be communicated to the board, it would go through Eddie.
So individual communication with the staff is no, one-on-one is fine.
I think so.
Okay, I'm just getting a clarification,
Yes.
because I had asked for some phone numbers to talk with some of the staff directly, and I think I just got the reply recently, and I haven't.
I hope that there's not a change in that, because it's pretty helpful to staff when you reach out.
Yes. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move to item number 6 now?
Chair Price, Tom Summers has his hand raised.
Oh.
Yeah, hi Eddie, and
Hi, Tom.
fellow CAC members. Yeah, thanks for bringing us back to number 5 there, Larry. I also have read the procedures and protocols for resignation and removal a number of times, and I think it directly applies to my own case because I have recently changed residence from Imperial Beach to San Diego. And I was asked by a couple of one of the board members, and as well as staff, to just hold off because it was a little bit vague. And I'm not sure that it's been completely cleared up. I'll just give you briefly my own situation here. I still have a mailing address in Imperial Beach. I still am in Imperial Beach often to collect my mail. And I have not changed my voter registration as of yet. However, I did go to the trouble of drafting a resignation letter, and I can submit it if that is deemed appropriate. I actually reached out to Kimberly today to find out the exact protocols for submitting such a letter, and she clarified it for me. And so not wishing to bring any discomfort, embarrassment, or question upon SDCP or our committee itself. I do appreciate the attempt to clarify resignation and removal on this item. So I will submit that letter if and when it is deemed appropriate by the appropriate folks. That includes our legal team as well as everybody, board of directors, staff, and you guys. So thank you very much for letting me chime in on that particular item.
Thank you. I know I may be sounding redundant, but now can we go to item number 6?
Chair Price, this is David. I just think that we need to kind of close out this item by deciding what we're going to do about a recommendation to the board. Are we going to come back next month with the changes and then make the recommendation, or did we want to take some sort of action today?
What actions would you suggest, sir?
Oh, I'm not suggesting a specific action. It's just that the board, we're supposed to make a recommendation to the board on the CAC operating guidelines. And it wasn't clear to me whether we were going to put that off until next month.
Do we have a list of recommendations or any suggested recommendations? If not, maybe we should put it off to next month. But if we do have some, then we should, vote upon those and send them to the board.
Sebastian, like process-wise, can we come back with the recommended changes in August and then go to the board after that?
Yeah, we certainly can.
Well, is that the desire of the committee? Is to, because we could take action today with changes, or we, as Sebastian suggested, bring it back next month and then with some changes that were suggested in today's meeting.
Well, Sebastian, do you have a list of the suggested changes?
Chair Price, I have written the feedback, and I can certainly include those. So I will leave the decision up to you all for staff to make those changes and bring them to the board, or for staff to make the changes to the draft, come back next month so you see an updated version, and then decide then whether to recommend it to the board for their approval.
So you do have a list, I'm assuming, but there's not a way to share the list. How many changes are there?
I've written around 8 changes, but I want to make sure that if I missed anything, I'm able to ensure that I capture everything that the committee has recommended. So I do have things written down, and I'm happy to utilize that information.
Okay, so it sounds like, for simplicity, we should vote on this at our next meeting. That by that time you will have a list that you sent to us, and we've been able to determine if that's enough on the list, correct?
I won't recommend on process, but it would be simpler on staff to take the suggestions today, work on an updated draft, and come back in August. So staff has ensured that we have taken all of your feedback.
So maybe we should take a vote on whether or not the committee approves of that process. So can you take a vote on the approval of that particular process of you coming back next month with a written out draft?
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Sure.
In absence of a motion to consider the changes today, coming back next month would be the default option and no vote is necessary.
Well, I just want to make sure that the members of the CAC are comfortable with this decision.
I understand. And the way to do that is to ask if there's any objection. And if a person objects, then it would be incumbent upon them to provide a motion that we can determine today.
Okie dokie. Are there any objections to this process? I don't hear none and I don't see any hands raised. So thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Now, and hopefully I'm saying this for the last time. I'm sorry I came late, so I'm kind of miscombobulated. But can we move to item number 6 now?
Staff has what they need to move forward, so we'll come back with an updated draft next month.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6, receive, update, and provide input on supplier diversity efforts.
Now, I'll take this one on as well, Chair Price. So at an overview, the Public Utilities Commission has a directive called General Order 156. It was first adopted in the 80s to ensure that the investor-owned utilities procurement of contracts were diverse. So they've had several decades to work on their diversity programs, and the General Order 156 has a requirement that utilities annually file a report every March 1st that is both backward-looking regarding the procurement from minority-owned businesses. And it's also forward-looking on looking at strategies to achieve the purpose of supplier diversity. In 2019, SB 255 was passed, which expanded GO 156 to include community choice aggregators. So originally, the intent of General Order 156 did not include CCAs because they weren't around in the 80s. And then with the increase of CCAs in the 2010s, SB 255 came into the picture. The purpose of SB 255 is to increase procurement from small, local, and diverse business enterprises. The requirement is the same reporting requirement. So every year we're supposed to submit this report, and we did that this past year. Yet some sections are not applicable to CCAs, and I'll go into that in just a little bit. Some of you may be familiar with Proposition 209 from 1996, which prohibits California public agencies and institutions from considering race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in selections for contracting, employment, or education. So I want to step back here, and CCAs fall under both GO 156, so from the utility side, and they fall under Prop 209 from the public agency side. So the IOUs are required to meet a certain percentage of their procurement to be minority-based, just from GO 156. And then because we are a public agency, we're not beholden to the same requirement. Instead, the PUC encourages CCAs to do their best faith effort to increase procurement from minority-owned businesses. So multiple sections, so because of that, multiple sections of the annual report and annual plan, or just report for simplicity, are not applicable to CCAs as they pertain to the spend targets and goal setting. One thing to note is that for CCAs, 90 to 95% of our expenses are on on power. And as you all may know, the power sector is not very diverse. Instituting diversity into that field is extremely difficult and something that will not change over time. Because of that, we are focusing efforts on increasing the diversity on our non-power contracts. So the 5 to 10% that we have left over. Through that, we're able to work collaboratively with local minority chambers of commerce to make them aware of contracting and procurement opportunities. But when it comes down to the awarding of contracts, we are unable to reward points to encourage minority-owned businesses to apply. So that is one tricky situation that has fallen on CCAs and that we are learning about. But as part of it, General Order 156, and let me see if I have any other slides here. So General Order 156 was amended earlier this year to incorporate SB 255. SB 255 requires CCAs with revenues of upwards $15 million to file. For the operating year 2020, because we were so small, we weren't required to file for that year, for that calendar year. In 2021, we did have revenues at and below 15 million. So this past March, we did file. As I mentioned, General Order 156 was amended earlier this year and included some revisions for CCAs to follow, and that is to include a supplier diversity webpage, and that is now live on our website. It also included a phone number for prospective contractors to call. And it also included persons with disability enterprises to come into the general nexus of supplier diversity. So just a little bit about our 2021 supplier diversity report. In it, we mentioned that we will continue to promote job opportunities to different groups, including minority-led ones, to let them know that there's opportunities out there. We also, to file this report every March, we need to gather data. And because we can't gather data before a contract is awarded, we must gather it after. So say, for example, let's see, Carolyn owns a business and she has a women-owned business. We can't get that information before for our own reporting purposes. We can only get it after. And so we would ask Carolyn to complete a survey for us that would be sent out soon after the contract is awarded. And then we would send the same survey in case we did not receive a response the following January. So right when we start developing the report. So we ask suppliers to complete the supplier diversity voluntary survey, and we abide by Prop 209 and by SCCP's inclusive and sustainable workforce policy. Internally, staff will work on conducting training to better understand the General Order 156 requirements and the supplier clearinghouse. So some of you may have heard of the Department of General Services and their designation of small businesses. Unfortunately, a business that is small business certified by DGS does not count towards the supplier clearinghouse. That is its own separate entity that a business needs to register with. So we are going through internally our existing vendors that were with us last year and are still with us today that may qualify for the supplier clearinghouse, but haven't done so. And so we're working internally to ensure that those vendors that we're working with do register, so that can look good for us on the reporting front. We do plan to host a workshop, a public workshop with PUC staff later this year to educate local businesses on how to become GEO 156 certified. And so SDG&E already does this sort of workshop. They partner with the Economic Development Council, right, Rita? And we have decided not to partner with them because, as I mentioned, we're in a different kind of atmosphere where our dollars tend to be more targeted towards smaller businesses. And also we want to increase our brand. And so that is our plan to work with POC staff, go through the technicalities of registering for the supplier clearinghouse, what the benefits are, and also invite any other local businesses that have already certified with the supplier clearinghouse. We want the public to know what their process has been, what are the lessons learned, and what could be improved. As I mentioned, we've set up a dedicated webpage on our efforts. And we're also working on solidifying what local means for products and services. So does that mean San Diego County? Does that mean just our service territory? So we want to make sure we focus a little bit more on that. So that was the annual report, which is backward-looking, annual plan, forward-looking. We, for last year, only had one certified supplier, so just a small $30,000. And that number is obviously small, but let's just kind of take a step back and think of the bigger picture that we're a newer organization and that we are starting this process of being engaged in supplier diversity. We have been told by PUC staff that the IOUs were at this same point in the 80s when the program first started. So it's just a matter of time for us to create the processes, the steps in place for us to increase the percentage of our diverse spend. I'll take your question in a minute, Larry. But yeah, for 2021 program activities, so what did we do to recognize the diversity and to promote supplier diversity? We worked with other CCAs. We participated in Cal CCA. They break up work into what they call tiger teams. And so there's a GEO 156 tiger team that SCCP is a part of. We've been able to learn best practices from how they operate this. We have, obviously with the JPA, we recognize communities of concern. We have our feeding tariff, which does provide an adder, as you guys may recall, for projects located in communities of concern. We did include solicitation language on GEO 156 in our RFPs. Prospective vendors were aware of our needs. We included references to our inclusive and sustainable workforce policy, and then we also made them aware of the supplier diversity questionnaire. So let me see. Okay. So yeah, overall, I would say that SCCP is ahead of the curve from a lot of the other CCAs in terms of ensuring that this program is a fundamental part of our growth. We are working on, as I mentioned, training staff. We're working on doing small changes to our procurement policy to ensure that we're able to do what we can to increase supplier diversity within the limits of the law. And we're just making everybody aware that this is something that we really want to do. So I'm here to take feedback, any suggestions, comments, questions, of course, Larry. And this is going to be an ongoing process throughout the year. So if at any point you guys have questions or suggestions, or if there's a business that you think wants to be certified with the supplier clearinghouse, do send them my way. We did set up a new email for contracts called contracting@scommunitypower.org. That's a dedicated inbox that we're going to be using for any prospective business that wants to work with us. as well as any questions around supplier diversity. So I'll pause right there. Been talking for a lot. Larry, I'll take your question.
Yes, I think what you laid out for supplier diversity sounds fine. My general comment was just early at the beginning, you said the power procurement didn't allow for diversity, but I think inherent in our selection process, where we're looking for a benefit of local participation, that once a selection is made, those local participations and the diversity within that should be highlighted. So I wouldn't say that it doesn't exist, that when a selection is made based on our criteria that has been gone over in the past, when the power procurement is, I'm repeating myself, but those selection is made, it should be highlighted where the local involvement and what the diversity is. So within the power procurement, but that's my just general comment. Sorry.
Thank you, Larry. And yeah, I want to clarify that we're going to look at power procurement, but just acknowledge the fact that historically that sector is not very diverse. And so as we're building up our brand and our efforts, we're of course going to pursue the power sector. But I just wanted to make a small note that just historically it's not very diverse. So given that, we're going to ensure that the rest of the business is as diverse as it can be within the limits of the law. So yeah, no, great note. Thank you. I wanted to clarify that.
Okay, are you done, Sebastian?
I am. I wanted to share these activities with you all. And as I mentioned earlier, if at any point you guys have questions or want to be involved in our supplier diversity efforts, particularly when we host the workshop later this year, I will tap into your networks, your connections, to make sure we let as many people know about what we're doing and ensure that businesses can benefit from the work that we do. So that wraps up my report, Chairperson.
I have a question. You know, as you're doing this work that will be beneficial to members in communities of concern, whether they're Black, Hispanic, low income, veteran, disabled, LGBTQ, do you have any of those people working with you on these solutions that are more familiar with these communities that are in question?
Chairperson, thank you so much for bringing that up. We actually recently connected with a business leader from the LGBTQ community here in San Diego. And he has offered to help us understand this process from their perspective. If you have any connections on those different minority groups that you can share with us, by all means. We want to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to represent everybody. And like I said, this is a brand new program that we're starting out, and would appreciate any recommendations, connections that you have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? I'm on my phone, so I can't see lifted hands.
Chair David.
I see David.
David?
Yeah, I can make a comment, but did you want to open it up to the public?
Sure. I think there's only one member from the public.
Yeah,
Are there any
Chairperson.
questions from Go ahead,
I don't
Sebastian.
see a hand raised, and there are no written public comments.
Okay, David.
Okay, so yeah, Sebastian, I wanted to thank you for your presentation. It was really clear on what the roles and responsibilities are under these various orders and laws, propositions. And I've always felt that the most important part of any program to encourage minority women, business, LGBTQ, is providing opportunities. And so what you've discussed is really increasing the opportunities for these businesses that qualify as minority women, business, veteran, et cetera, that they're given as many opportunities as possible to compete for these contracts through the CCA. So thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you, David. Any more questions? I'm assuming not. With that, I believe we can move on to item number 7. Who's going to? Okay, thank you, Rita.
So first of all, as you all know, we have an open seat on the CAC for Chula Vista. And the update for that is that our director on our board from Chula Vista, Director Padilla, hasn't yet chosen a nominee to fill that seat. So I'm working closely with his staff, and we're hoping to get someone in by this month's board meeting. So not a ton of update for you all there. Also, I just wanted to let you know that there's a lot of open positions on our for staff right now. We're going to be posting some later this afternoon, and then we'll put everything together in an email and ask if you could please share with your networks. And then I'll send links to our social posts if you don't mind sending those. So those jobs are the following. We've got an administrative assistant position, an outreach associate, a programs associate, and still looking for power services portfolio manager. So any help with spreading the word, that would be great. So that's all I have. Are there any questions before I turn it over to Rachel for social media update? David, is your hand up, or is that okay? I'll turn it over to Rachel then. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. So in building out our brand and social media kind of visibility, what I wanted to do, so you'll probably be hearing from me in the next couple weeks, I wanted to start doing like short interviews as well as Instagram takeovers. So I'm revamping our news section on the website. And then we'll be reaching out to anyone that would like to participate, obviously not required, to just tell a little bit more of your story, why you came on to the CAC, a little bit about what you do. I think it's really important to storytell that mission as part of being a community front-facing agency. So that's really that update. And then the only other thing that we are currently working on is a summer readiness webpage that will land on our resources page. This will just be to allow people, during the hot summer months to get tips and tricks for saving on their bill, and then in case any kind of emergencies, what to do, whether it's a power outage or a wildfire. So we should have that up and running by next week, hopefully by Friday. And I think that was it. I know, Rita, you said you wanted me to pass this over to Lucas, our power service.
Will you be sending out an email when you have that update done so we can all take a quick look at it?
Yes, I can. Would you like to see the draft or just once it's actually up and ready?
Once it's open,
Okay.
It would be fun to see. Yes, and then
I'd like to also see the draft if possible.
Could probably do that. Any other questions? I think Anna had a question.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that we can share these out in the community.
Oh, the profiles?
Yeah, the openings or
Definitely. Yeah, we usually post a lot of them on our LinkedIn, as well as social. So retweeting or just resharing from LinkedIn is great, or I've just shared them on my own personal LinkedIn, and that also usually helps a lot.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any more questions or comments? I'm assuming no questions from the public, Sebastian?
I think we've got one more update.
Yeah, I believe Lucas, our Director of Data Analytics and Account Services, had an
Oh,
update.
for enrollment. Okay.
Correct, yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. And thanks, Sheriff Price. Good afternoon, members of the CAC. Happy Friday. So I'm literally going to provide a high-level update on our enrollment status. So happy to announce that we are the second largest CCA in the state, obviously. As of Tuesday of this week, we have 699,506 active accounts in our portfolio, 69,910 of which are from our phase 1 and 2. So primarily the non-residential customer base.
Hold up, Lucas. You said 299,000?
No, 699,506 active accounts.
Jiminy crickets. Okay.
Lucas, do you have a slide with these numbers, or is this just a placeholder slide?
Yeah, I think this is just a placeholder slide. I put together a one pager that I can share right now so that you can see it visually. So give me just a second here. All right, hopefully you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So we are at 699,506 active accounts, 69,910 of which are from phase 1 and 2, with the remainder 629,596 from phase 3. And we, as a result of that, we're officially the second largest CCA in the state. And I think by extension in the nation. I've tried to look for those metrics nationwide. They're not readily available, but I do think this year, probably the EIA will publish that information, which I think will confirm that we are de facto the second largest CCA in the country. Participation rates are stellar, as you can see. I think it's something to rave about. We're at 97.6% for phase 1 and 2, and tracking phase 3 separately, we're at 97.7. So that means about 2.4% of customers in phase 1 and 2 have opted out, whereas for phase 3, it's about 2.3%, which again is stellar relative to other participation rates in other CCAs across the state. This visual here, hopefully you can see it. If you can't, let me know so I can make it slightly bigger. But this actually captures the participation rates by every member jurisdiction. This gets captured every month in the reports that we send out to the board for the most part. And you will also see it hopefully more refreshed for the month of July by the time of our July board meeting. And we are going to do a presentation to the board, essentially capturing the status of enrollment and participation rates, throughout the month of July. So all things considered, we are doing relatively, really, actually very well. And again, that's just a testament to all the work that all of you are putting in, simply because, there is still misinformation via social media channels, I'm sure you guys see. But again, we greatly appreciate the engagement that you all are doing on our behalf in the communities. And again, that to me is a direct correlation in terms of the awesome participation rates that we're seeing. As far as opt-outs, so, across the board for phase 1 and 2 and 3, cumulatively, we're about 2.4% of customers have opted out. Again, that is great. I mean, the opt-out numbers are really low relative to other CCAs in the state. I wanted to capture, what we're seeing in terms of what customers are conveying as drivers of why they're opting out. The number one reason is obviously customers dislike being automatically enrolled, and we hear that day in, day out. We hear it from our contact center. We also hear it in the email inquiries and email comments that the public is submitting to us. And then the next reason why customers are opting out is rate or cost concerns. We see this at a high level in terms of the inquiries that come in. I think the general public, even though we've done a tremendous job in trying to educate them that, hey, the CCA charge or the line item that they see on their bill is not an additional charge, in addition to what SDG&E otherwise charges for the commodity. It's just a replacement charge. But nonetheless, we are still seeing that quite a few of our customers are misunderstanding the line item on their bill as being an extra charge. So again, all that to say is, the more social media outreach that Rachel was talking about, I think that would help. We are contemplating doing social media Did You Know series, essentially educating our customers to understand that the line item that they see denoting a CCA charge is not an additional charge, just a replacement charge. And obviously, while being offered a superior product. As far as opt-ups, so customers who have opted up to our Power 100 service, which is 100% renewable, 100% carbon-free, about 4.3% of all of our active customers, including those folks in Encinitas, constitute this 4.3% that I have listed here. And then last but not least, wanted to give you a quick high-level overview of how our contact center is faring. So you can clearly see that call volumes have significantly increased as a function of our phase 3, which we were expecting. I would say the peak month for calls was April, obviously right before Chula Vista and the city of San Diego enrollment commenced. And this was a function of the two pre-enrollment notices that those customers received. We are anticipating seeing a similar uptick in terms of the amount of calls, especially now that a lot of those customers in Chula Vista and San Diego are actually receiving their bills with the SDCP line item included for the first time. And again, our contact center is adequately staffed for the call volume or for the anticipated call volume. We have a total of dedicated 30 customer service representatives. And again, if you haven't called the contact center, I definitely implore you to do so, just to say hi, to ask questions, test out our scripts, and test out our customer engagement voice as well. I think our CSRs do an awesome job of trying to retain customers who call either wanting to opt out because maybe they're not understanding the value proposition of SDCP, or they just don't understand what service we're offering. By all means, feel free to give our contact center a call and let us know how that interaction went. That will be greatly appreciated. And I think that actually concludes my high-level presentation for today. Again, be on the lookout for the board packet and the presentation that will come in the next 3 weeks. And that is going to essentially capture what we're expecting to see play out in the month of July, which is, call volumes increasing and possibly even seeing a little bit of an uptick in opt-outs. That is to be expected at a high level. So having said that, I see quite a few hands raised. I will turn the baton back to Chair Price to essentially call on the hands raised. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lucas. Appreciate your professional presentation there. Thank you. Again, I can't see the hands, so if somebody would be so kind as to call the hands, I would greatly appreciate that.
There's,
First, we have. Go ahead, Richard.
I don't know who was first. That's the only thing. Tom, Gary, and Larry had their hands. So I see Larry first on my screen. So let's call on Larry first.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's very encouraging. I would like to see more opt-up and efforts to encourage people to opt up, because I think there are people out there who are interested, but they don't know they can do it. And so, Rachel, when you do your informations and outreach, then make sure you include that as an option. And I'm wondering, in the future billing, do we remind people in Chula Vista, San Diego, the big cities, that they have that option? Is it put in the bill every month to let them know that? Or was only one flyer, 2 flyers at the beginning? So that's, I think that people will opt up if they are encouraged, and we should continue to do that. And how are we doing? My question is, how are we continue to do that outreach? And Rachel, I know you can make an impact as well. But do we do any more? Is in the monthly billing, is it mentioned every time or not? Who can answer that one?
Hi, Larry. Thanks for that comment. I will gladly answer. In terms of the outreach or rather outreach to communities and customers to opt up to Power 100, I'm pretty sure you did see the significant media coverage around our Power 100 champions that took place, if I remember correctly, about 3 weeks ago with the San Diego Padres, with Fleet and other Power 100 champions, including Sharp, etc., Illumina. And so we are going out to the public domain and essentially encouraging customers to take a look at our Power 100 service option. Quite honestly, in terms of the comparative value to SDG&E's equivalency, which is eco-choice, our Power 100 service is 2 times less expensive than SDG&E's eco-choice, and so there is significant value for customers. And we've done the outreach, and Rita, feel free to chime in, or Rachel, in terms of the non-residential customers. As far as residential customers, obviously, as Tara knows, folks in Encinitas are defaulted to Power 100. Obviously, they do have an option to opt down. And then, as far as spurring the residential opt-ups, I do think we will be running a few things, possibly in the next coming months, if not weeks, to essentially spur that conversation. The one thing that I definitely would like to note is the fact that we've now crossed over from the winter season to the summer season. And generally speaking, and this is true, and we're already hearing from customers, is the fact that customers are noticing an uptick in their bill, right? And that is directly a function of the fact that the summer rates or the summer prices tend to be slightly higher than the winter rates, right? Coupled with the fact that in the summer, there's more need for cooling, which then spikes usage. And so the combination of those 2 factors essentially yields slightly higher bills than you would otherwise see in the winter. And usually in the residential space in particular, CCAs have tended to do more targeted outreach for opt-ups outside of the summer period.
Thanks, Lucas. Lucas pretty much covered what I wanted to point out, is that we just want to be sensitive to people whose rates have increased due to the summer months. But I also wanted to address your question, Larry, regarding the bill. I don't know, Lucas, can you verify? I don't think that we have yet that ability to have that type of messaging in the bill as it stands.
Yeah, So in terms of the bill insert or the bill message, we can put in a bill message. I think we have a character limit. I believe it's maybe 80 characters or maybe 130. I forget the nuances across the IOUs, but I think in the SDG&E territory, we can put in a bill message. And I think we did put in one essentially articulating the fact that, you know, we're moving away from the winter and into the summer. And so, you know, given the fact that bills for the most part will on average increase slightly as a function of that transition, I do think, and this is, you know, perhaps a lesson learned from the other CCAs who have been in the space longer, that messaging usually is better served being affixed to the bill in the winter. So when we cross over from, you know, around November, which is technically when winter season officially kicks in, we will definitely affix the message to say, hey, you know, Power 100 is here, or something like that. You know, please opt up and visit, you know, our URL to opt up. I don't think now is probably the right time to do so. So,
but thank you for verifying that we do have that, and it led me to another thing. So Rachel and I have been brainstorming with the help of others about different things we can do for a Power 100 campaign for residents. But one thing, there will be a mailer in the early fall going out with our Power content, and we will have some information about opting up to Power 100 in that mailer that will go out to our customers.
Tom, you got a question?
I was just going to say thanks to Lucas for his clarity and concise reporting. And I actually did reach out to our recorded message about a year ago. And I've been using that as a recommendation to people. A lot of people kind of know that I'm a little bit biased about SDCP, and I was grateful to be able to recommend that they call and get it straight from the source. It was a very clear and concise message. I haven't checked it lately. I don't know if it's evolved or changed, but for any of my fellow advisors, I would say that that's a good resource. You can always tell people to call that number, and it kind of reconfirms our message. So thanks, Lucas.
thank you, Tom. And I was sad to hear about our green bus and what happened to it.
There's another one coming.
That's awesome. Thanks for your support.
Any other hands up that I can't see?
Gary
Yeah.
did.
Yep. My question always, Lucas, what is the opt-down rate for Encinitas percentage?
Percent-wise, so let me actually, I do have a dashboard. Yeah, that's an excellent question, Gary. The opt-down for Encinitas is 350 accounts have opted down, and that is as a function of 28,000 active accounts in Encinitas, represents roughly 1.25%.
Oh.
Thanks.
Was there any opt-outs in Encinitas, Lucas?
Opt-out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Eddie, Encinitas is the worst. We're over 6% of the residentials are opting out because they don't understand it and they're not getting a cheaper product. They don't understand about the 100% default. There's a lot of messaging issues with doing it, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And to that point that Gary is making, the opt-out percentages in Encinitas actually track with other CCAs that did default member agencies into the 100% into their 100% renewable product. I think a good example of that can be seen and found in Peninsula Clean Energy. Portola Valley actually was defaulted into PCE's 100% renewable. And I think, if I remember correctly, having checked on it last week, their participation rate was 91%. And that is true if you also take stock of similar member cities for Clean Power Alliance, who essentially defaulted their customers to their 100% renewable. And so I think from Gary's perspective, perhaps, and this is something that we've chatted about with the with Crystal Nahara from City of Encinitas, in the sense that, you know, if there are newsletters, which there are, essentially we can message to customers that rather than opting out completely, they do have that option to opt down to Power On. And essentially that is in I think in my opinion a better option, as opposed to opting out and foregoing, you know, the renewable energy content delta between our Power On, which is at 50%, relative to SDG&E's base that's currently at 31%.
And I think actually the fact that that opt down is so small it shows that we could be more effective in getting the message that that is an option for people who are price conscious.
Absolutely, Gary. And you know, to the number of events that we've had at Encinitas, which you're a part of, I think that was essentially the primary core of our message. That, hey, you know, for anybody who has concerns with regards to, you know, being automatically defaulted to Power 100, they definitely had that option to opt down as opposed to opting out. And I think when folks heard from Gary, they were more in you know, they were more in line to actually opt down as opposed to opting out. So again, I just wanted to thank all of you for all the work that you're putting in the community on our behalf. And again, if there are any questions at any point in time, feel free to reach out to staff.
Thank you. Any other hands, please?
Yes, mine. Secretary Webb. I had a comment. I just wanted to circle back what we were talking about with the customer service. I had to call SDCP once and received the best customer service rep. I thought that was dead in our country, and she was so helpful. And so I tell everybody that, look, if you have any questions at all, just call them. You know, they will absolutely take care of you. So.
Cool. Any other questions or comments? I'm assuming not. Lucas, is this the end of your presentation, sir?
Yes, indeed, it is, Chair Price. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 8, receive an update on the community power plan development.
Yes, hello, Chair Price. I'm gonna turn over the beginning of this presentation to Carolyn Schofield, committee member Carolyn Schofield, to provide an update on where we stand with the community power plan.
All right, thanks. So the general overview and 2 specific pieces of the needs assessment are what I'm going to mention today, because I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of the scale of the project and also what's happening with it. So this was great to follow Lucas's presentation because of the amount of customers that we have. And what we're reaching out to those customers as well as our future customers in the unincorporated county and national city. So I wanted you to know that that's what our engagement is going to be. And the other thing I think is really important is the community power plan. Through that plan, San Diego Community Power is going to return excess revenues to our community members. And this is really a big piece of what distinguishes us from investor-owned utilities. And so I think it's really exciting for people to see in action the things that we said we would do and how it works and what's really going to happen. So as we do our outreach to our communities. So as far as the community power plan needs assessment, there are three big pieces. The one that you see on the screen first is the outreach through the community-based organizations. And you all submitted some names, so thank you for that. And the second slide that we'll look at in just a minute is about the online outreach and listening sessions. And then finally, the survey. So those are kind of the big pieces of the needs assessment and the outreach. So this is really exciting. We have 5 organizations that we're looking at and potentially partnering with. And as a part of this outreach mentioned prior in the meeting is that we will be gaining lasting relationships with community organizations and all of their organizations as well. So it's a really important outreach to these 5 organizations. And they will be hosting listening sessions with their residents. And this will be either, it's up to them, whether it's in person or online. They will be in multiple languages. There'll be interpretation. San Diego Community Power is going to provide support for food and babysitting. So these will be great community events. And we will be letting you know when we have the details. And just to go over the map really quickly, the 2 biggest circle MAC project, both in the South County and in the North. And then Casa Familia is the yellow down at the bottom in the South Bay. And then we have our next one is Environmental Health Coalition. I'm looking at in terms of size, the kind of brownish circle. And then Mid-City Can. And also we have Project New Village. And I actually looked that one up, and it's about fresh food availability to people. And that was really great to see. And then also Mid-City Can and Environmental Health Coalition. So we have backup organizations, and if these don't work out, and also the other community-based organizations that have been submitted will still be contacted. So they're being contacted right now for interviews, and they'll also be asked to help with the survey. So can we have the next slide, please? And these are our public listening sessions. These are all online. So this covers a different audience so that we want to get as many responses as possible. And this is where you really come in for promoting these events. And so we have an English online presentation with Spanish interpretation, and a Spanish listening session with English interpretation the last week of July. And then the week before that are the business sessions, and those are also online. And it looks like the registration, Nelson's going to tell you more, but the registration for those is already open. And then finally, the larger business accounts at the bottom. So that's what we're looking forward to, and we'll have a lot to do and a lot of community engagement. There'll also be, continuing community events and, pop up and other opportunities in communities. So thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for the business listening sessions. Have you contacted any of the BIDs, business improvement districts?
Yes, so for the business listening sessions, we have been spreading the word by sending emails and contacting chambers of commerce. So everything from the San Diego region to the Black Chamber to the Hispanic Chamber, contacting the business improvement districts, as well as other, gonna pull up the list real quick. as well as like other types of associations, like for example, the La Mesa Village Association. So anything related to the kind of the business world, we've been sending out emails asking them to promote these sessions.
Okay, and for the public planning, for the public groups, have the community planning groups been contacted? Like Mount Hope and Skyline and Emerald Hills and the Barrio and the some of the community planning groups that are associated with different cities.
Yeah, we have not yet contacted those groups because we haven't done the registration for those, the engagement for those. That's going to be happening all of next week. So we're going to be doing the public listening sessions, again, leveraging a lot of the groups that were provided to us by the CAC, the cities themselves, the staff from the cities, and the board of directors all submitted a list of organizations and community-based organizations that we should be reaching out. So that will all be happening next week in terms of sending out emails to get them to promote the registration to these listening sessions as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, in addition, we're going to be promoting those public listening sessions through the cities themselves. So we're going to be working with city staff to try and get the city councils, if possible, to send out a notice or include it in their newsletters that go out so that we can get more attendance at these events as well. And they will also be promoted on social media.
Cool.
So Chair, if you want to send me some of those business improvement, or not business improvement, the districts that you were mentioning, I'd be happy to send that, include them in the emails that we send out.
Okay, will do.
Yeah, and then one thing that I wanted to mention as well is that in addition to these listening sessions that we're doing, both that you see here with the public listening sessions, the business listening sessions, and the listening sessions with the community-based organizations, we're also interviewing a number of up to 10 what we called interest groups or stakeholders to get a sense what they're hearing from their communities as well. So there's a lot going on here. And then the last piece that also is important to remember is the survey. So the survey is going to be, is in development. It's going to be ready to go live by the end of next month. And so we're going to be doing a big push for that survey. Again, leveraging these relationships that we are developing with community-based organizations and the large organizations to get the word out for the survey itself, I should say.
Cool.
And I see Ada's hand. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries at all. I have a quick question. I don't think I heard it, but as we do the outreach, any particular outreach to the economic development corporations, South County EDC, those are pretty big, and there's a lot of shareholders and stakeholders within these committees. So I was curious to know, there's a few other ones that may be key players. I was curious to know if there was outreach to those entities yet.
Yeah, there has been. So we've reached out to them, inviting them to attend the listening sessions as well, and to spread the word about them as well.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome. Carolyn?
Yeah, I was going to say, were you going to talk about the meeting next month, or do you want me to? I can.
Go ahead.
Okay, so all of you are going to have your own listening session, and that's going to be at the August meeting. So Kearns and West will be in our meeting, and they'll be providing questions ahead of time so that you have information to look at, and you can kind of, think about what you would like to add to our endeavor. But also, I mean, it's a great opportunity to this is another opportunity to talk to community members and find out what their ideas are too, and so that we can get as many responses as possible from as many people as possible. So I believe we'll also be sending out this update that's on the screen right now so that you can hand these out or email these out. Once the all of the links are live, then we'll be able to send this out to you so that you can pass it on to others. So it's a great time to let everybody know. And then we'll be doing a lot of feedback ourselves next month.
Yeah, thank you for that. And as Carolyn mentioned, we're working on setting up a web page on our website that's specifically about the Community Power Plan project. And part of that is including registration links for attending all of these listening sessions, as well as any other information that is relevant, and sending people out to the survey as well. So we're working on that really hard, trying to get it up. And as soon as we get all of those links live and that page live, we will be sending you something very similar to this slide that includes all the dates and times and links to the registrations as well. And as Carolyn mentioned, that at the August 12th CAC meeting, our consultant Kearns and West and AirUp are going to be joining to kind of do the best way I can describe it is like a listening session with the CAC to kind of get your feedback on what you think are the types of programs that are important, what are the priorities for the organization, because all of this information is being gathered and is going to be the basis for the types of programs that we analyze to go into what types of programs are best aligned with community needs to potentially launch within the next 5 years. So this is all very important work, and I'm excited to do this with the CAC.
And we thank you for doing it, sincerely.
You're welcome. I see committee member Larry Emerson's hand is up, Chair.
So I had to step out for a second, but I'm just reconfirming that listening is that the San Diego Community Power and the consultants are listening to the public, listening to the businesses on their suggestions on what would be helpful to the community. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So these listening sessions are really about getting to what are the needs within communities, what are the challenges that communities are facing, specifically as they relate to climate change, sustainability, energy, electricity. You know, there's a lot there, just so that we can start to get a full picture of what are the needs, what are the challenges, and how can the universe of programs that exist out there, how do they best align to help meet those needs or fill in the gaps?
So when you start these sessions, are you going to be presenting what are some of the typical things that CCAs have done for communities in California?
We're not taking that route because we don't want to influence community members on the types of programs that should be launched. More so, we want to get really at the root problem and challenges and needs within the community. So we don't want to come in and say, hey, there's this, I'm just going to take an example. There's this microgrid program. Is this something that you want? More so, we want to go into communities and be like, hey, what are your challenges? What are the needs within your community? And then take if they mention, reliability, if they mention anything related to that a microgrid program would potentially solve, then that would be something we can capture and look at through the plan and be like, hey, like the XYZ needs were listed and a microgrid program would help solve those problems. So we're approaching these listening sessions really as a way to let's hear from the community at large.
Well,
okay,
to the young man's point, we're asking people that don't know what the hell we're talking about, right? And they don't have a frame of reference. So, and I understand what he was asking. They need some sort of frame of reference to understand what their needs might be or what the possibilities are, because otherwise they're not going to give us, you won't get the answers that will be truly beneficial, because the people haven't had time to think about it, and they're not thinking about it today like we are, right? It's not their world. This is our world, but it's not their world. We're just talking about energy, and all they're really worried about is a bill. So it may behoove the situation if you do send some type of forwarding information to open up that space in their brain to think about this.
Okay, yeah, that's great feedback.
And I think I asked this before, but I was interested in personally as a CCA member to get a summary of what has been done in other CCAs in California. I still raise my hand for that request. If you can send it to me and the other members, I think that's good background information. I can understand what you're saying. You're trying to solicit what their needs are without influencing them. So you have to balance out how to do that the best way. But I personally would still like to get a kind of a summary of what has been the common programs benefiting communities in California, if that's possible, Nelson.
Yeah, no, that's totally possible, and it's actually part of the plan itself. So in addition to all of this community engagement that we're doing to get at the community needs assessment, the other part of the community power plan itself is to understand what to do market assessment and market research into what is the universe of programs that exists out there from all types of program implementers, including CCAs. And we're going to be, as part of that effort, we're going to be engaging in what we call, quote unquote, a Cca listening tour to understand what are the types of programs that the CCAs at large have tested out, have launched, are currently implementing, and steal ideas where it makes sense. And that's all going to be part of an appendix to the plan. It's going to influence the plan itself, but it's also going to be an appendix for what that research showed.
Thank you. Any more questions? Do you see anybody see any questions?
I don't see any more hands raised.
Sebastian, were there any questions from the public?
There are no hands raised and no written public comments.
Well, it looks like we might be done with this one, right?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 9. I'm sorry, I'm eating potato chips, so if my voice sounds different, that's why. Discussion of potential agenda items for Board of Directors meeting. Committee? Wow, I thought this one was going to be a little bit longer. This seems rather quick. Sebastian, can you go over what's going to happen with those suggestions that we had on item number 5 or 6?
Yeah, on item number 5, I will work on an updated draft, which will include the suggested revisions by the committee today, and come back in August for review. And
okay, so you have a list of those. Can you like verbalize that list?
I don't want to be out of scope in this item, but I'm happy to follow up via email and share those specifically with the group.
That'll work. Committee, do we have any other potential agenda items for the board that we'd like to discuss? If not, we can move on to item number 10. Uh-oh, this is the good part. Council member announcements. Committee member announcements. Does anybody have anything to announce?
Actually, this is Anna, my hand's raised. I wanted to announce the Sandcastle competition Sun and Sea Festival here in Imperial Beach, which is July 16th. It runs from 8 a.m. to about 5:30 p.m. and there's different events that happen in the meantime. I believe they may still be taking sponsorship, so I reached out to ask, and I didn't know if that's something SDCP wants to do, but when I get that information, I can reach out to Rita and see if that's something feasible. So I know it's modified this year. I mean, in the past, we've had food trucks and booths and, close the streets. But the last few years, of course, it's been extremely modified. So
what is the name of this again? What is the name and what is the purpose?
It's the Sun and Sea Festival here in Imperial Beach. It happens annually in July. And they have a huge sandcastle competition. I mean,
Oh,
people
okay.
are professionals. They come in and then they get judged. They have to be done by 3:30. They only have 8 a.m. till 3:30 to finish. And then they get judged. Everybody can go by and view them, and it's quite spectacular. But it does attract a large crowd. So it may be something we want to participate in. Anyway,
Sounds like it.
it's fun.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Any other committee member announcements?
David and Victoria and Gary.
Cool.
There you go. David, let's call on you.
Yeah, nothing so exciting as a sandcastle competition, but I did notice earlier that July is the month that we elect officers, and wanted to see if we could put that on the agenda for next month.
Good catch, David. That's an error on my part. So thank you for catching that. And yeah, it will be on the agenda for August.
Thanks.
Anybody else have their hand?
Okay,
Go ahead, Gary.
this is Gary. What happened to the green bus?
Tom tore it up.
I got T-boned by a drunk driver and I ended up in the hospital, but I'm going to make a complete recovery. The bus, not so much, but you guys might know that I am involved with the EV community, the EV Association of America, and also EV West. And one of my favorite nonprofits, apart from SDCP, is the EV Learning Center. So we will be preparing another mascot electric VW bus, and it's going to be available for us to attend events and spread the word. Even if I'm no longer an advisor from Imperial Beach, I will be very much involved with San Diego Community Power as a resident of San Diego and as a resident of San Diego County. So yeah, more to come. Thanks for asking. By the way, you guys on staff sent me the most wonderful get well card, and I really thank you very much.
Well, I am mortified to hear that there was, a physically bad accident for you, and speedy recovery. My best wishes.
Yeah, thanks, Gary, and thanks to everybody. Yeah, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah, we would have sent you a card if we would have known, sir.
You know, this is just not something that I wanted to go out to the public, but
I understand.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending, there was a bystander who put it on a YouTube channel called 9/11 TV, and I'm in a club, a VW club, and somebody saw it, so they put it on Facebook, and then everybody else saw it. So, yeah.
Cool. It's an interesting way to get your 15 minutes of fame, but I guess you got to do what you got to do at some point. Any other committee members?
This is Larry Emerson. I just wanted to share, if I can show you this T-shirt my daughter bought me. Can you read what it says?
You're a big fan of renewable energy.
There we go. Okay. I wear it proudly.
Victoria had her hand up for a while.
Yes, hello, I'm Victoria from Spring Valley. We live in an environmental justice community in a food desert. And this Sunday I'm hosting a Guerrilla Gardening. We're basically just trying to make a community garden. We've been doing it for like over a month. We're putting in tomatoes this week. We put in herbs like a couple weeks ago. We have different native plants. Everything is donation based. People are like like the neighbors are coming and watering it. We're getting compost from Escondido because it's free up there. Just if you can come by on Sunday, it's very appreciated. I'm going to send Sebastian the information because I don't think I have everyone's emails, but if you come, I will greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Where's it gonna be at?
It's behind where I went to middle school. So it's behind STEAM Academy in Spring Valley, and then the closest cross streets are Kempton Street and Piedmont Street.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, and it's next to 2 Title I schools, government housing, our library, teen center, rec center. It's like the spot that I think would be ideal for a community garden.
Cool. You're an interesting and beautiful piece of work, young lady.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other announcements?
Gary, did you have another announcement? I just, Chair, if I may, I just
Sorry.
had
All right, here we go.
an announcement. I just wanted to let everyone know that this is my last CAC meeting with you all. I've decided to move on from San Diego Community Power to my next adventure, and I just wanted to thank everyone for your passion, hard work, and support. And I hope that we can all continue to work together and raise up our communities. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so very, very, very much, Rita. You are greatly appreciated and will be sorely missed.
I second that.
Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you so much for
Thank you,
everything.
Rita. You've been wonderful to work with. We appreciate you always supporting us and being there for the community.
We're gonna miss you.
Thank you for everything, Rita.
No. Gonna miss you terribly. We love you.
Okay, and with that sad announcement, are there any other announcements before we adjourn?
Wow.
Okay, without any further ado, I would like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Rita.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye, Rita.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you, Rita. We'll miss you.